Hi, my name is Gil Robertson, president of the African American Film Critics Association. Today, we are thrilled to be talking to the legendary director, Carl Franklin, about his work on the excellent Apple TV Plus series, Manhunt. We're going to kick things off by introducing you to the AAFCA members who are on the call today, starting with Al McGee in South Florida, Boca Raton, Carolyn Hines in Toronto, Nancy Green in Los Angeles, and Dana Abercrombie in New York, New York. I'm going to let you guys do what you do so well, and I'll see you on the other side.
Now, where are you at, brother?
I'm in LA.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I was born with a chance to be somebody. I'm gonna be the most famous man in the whole world.
Mr. President, the Confederacy is dead. The Union is saved. The war is over.
Freedom for the South!
What happened?
The president's been shot.
Witnesses are saying we're John Wilkes Booth.
Wait, the actor?
Do you know who I am?
I'm a symbol.
How does a well-known actor commit murder in front of an audience of 1,500 people and escape?
Find the man that killed my husband.
Gentlemen, I am tasking you with the capture of John Wilkes Booth.
All of this can be broken. Hold your devil by his throat and spin him to the ground.
This is a conspiracy to dismember our government.
I know who you are, Mr. Booth.
You gonna help us or not?
There's a bounty on the head of Booth. I intend to collect.
Booth is being protected by the Confederacy.
Now with Lincoln out of the way, this country belongs to us.
I will not surrender. May God be my judge. God bless America.
Well, hello, Mr. Carl Franklin again. And let me just say this. I've always been a big fan of yours, even during your acting days. And then you began directing. But this series, Manhunt, I watch every episode, and I really enjoyed it because I'm a huge Abraham Lincoln fan. I read a few books about him, and I haven't seen many movies about his assassination. There's been some, but this one was very impactful to me because you really had more details in this about President Johnson and also about the murderer himself. And this is based on a book, but what drew you to this series, to work this, and also to truly get involved in this? Because it's a very, very good miniseries. I really enjoyed it.
Well, you know, it's Lincoln, of course, I think is important to any of us in that particular era, any of us who are Black, because of the, what happened with the Emancipation Proclamation and, what the war was all about, the debate as to whether was it about slavery, was it about economics, what was, the whole deal. And so I was naturally drawn for that reason. And, the assassination, I guess, I'm also kind of equally interested in the JFK assassination and the Martin Luther King assassination. Those three, Malcolm X is kind of clear, I think, what went down, but the others are shrouded in mystery more so. But, it's a general interest in how literally how frail the system is that we live in. And we kind of saw that in the last election in 2020. When we had to go through even after the, the Electoral College came in, et cetera, there were still all these other steps that had to be taken care of before we could say, well, he's president of the United States. And that was weird. That was an education for me. I didn't know about all of that, the electors and, the couple people from Secretary of State could actually invalidate an election, So the transfer of power was interesting also, and to find out exactly because, why was it that, the promises that were made to Black people immediately after the war were broken so quickly, the whole 40 acres and a mule that Johnson did not honor.
Yeah, they brought a lot of that together in this series. And like I said, it's a very good series. And thank you for answering that question. Thank you very much.
Hi, Carolyn for Carolyn Talks podcast YouTube channel. Thank you so much for joining us today. I have to ask, as the director for the first 2 episodes of this series, you get to set the tone for the entire show. You get to set the tone for the audience, but you also get to set the tone for the cast and the crew and how the story is going to progress visually and narratively. Can you talk about that process and how your own experience as an actor working in front of the camera helps you to be able to direct other actors and also set the tone for how the story is going to progress and how it's going to look and feel to us?
Well, I believe in, when you set the tone, basically, I don't like to be heavy-handed and come in and basically say, well, a director who comes in after me has to do this or has to do that. It really, because actually the showrunner has to kind of be the one who keeps a consistency. But basically it was to try to, at the same time that we are dealing with a period piece, to make it feel, a lot of times when you see something that has happened a long time ago, in the way that it's shot with a lot of filters, et cetera, and a lot of, depending upon how it's shot, it can feel like it's a Hallmark kind of a thing, like a memory or something, a memoir, and you want it to feel immediate, and so that's one of the important assignments is to do that. But a lot of it, like, I've worked with other showrunners and whom I respect, David Fincher being one of them. And what I like about the way that he does it is a similar way that, I kind of do it also. And that's just, there's certain things that you don't want to do, conventionally. And you just say, well, these are the things that I would really rather you not do. And then, but the filmmaker himself and the showrunner are gonna, take it in the direction that it goes. Now, in regards to starting out as an actor, I feel like my experience as an actor was only really to kind of get me ready to be a director. I didn't feel that at the time when I was acting because I was totally committed to that. But I saw myself in something after I had started directing, and I realized that if I came in and auditioned for me, I wouldn't hire me. So, I mean, I look at it as just training for me to kind of understand the internal process that an actor has to go through,
Great, thank you so much. And I do get what you mean about not wanting it to feel like a memoir and more immediate, because I think that's a tricky balance for period pieces, especially those set in a time where we've seen many films and many TV shows about the same story and characters or situations. So I understand that. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and what I don't, and it's a really, kind of a fine line to follow, because at the same time I don't want to do the anachronistic thing of using modern music, because I think that takes people out of it, or to shoot it in a way that's real cutty, because that's really kind of more of the MTV generation, and and a lot of people, I think, when they see a period piece, they want to get soaked up in the ambiance. They want to travel back in time. And so in some ways you want to give them that opportunity to get, to get immersed in that world,
Great, thank you.
Dana Abercrombie, the Coalition. My question for you is, what I love is it's a fine balance of actual research of things that happened. And also you have things that are used for dramatic effect and purposes, especially when it comes to certain plot points. What I wanted to know from you is, how do you find, even within the dramatic effects part, the authenticity of bringing that to the screen?
Well, you try to, like, kind of, it's much more about behavioral. You try to look at what the behavioral traits are of people of that time. And you try to find a common language, knowing that one, you're not going to be completely accurate because you're not from that time. And like right now, I mean, I'm reading a book on ancient Egypt, Light of the World by Gerald Massey, which was written in 1907. And what's so great about the book is it actually explains the totems and takes it into Africa, which is where he says you have to go if you want to understand Egypt. I just want to get that out there. But at any rate, the dialogue, I mean, the language is, I've had to look up so many words because a lot of the words that were used at that time are not used anymore. And in fact, some of them I couldn't find in the dictionary. And so, in trying, we weren't there at that time. So the language is a common currency, and you to some extent have to make some concessions in order for the modern audience to be able to understand it. But you at the same time want to mask it in such a way so that they do not recognize the kind of current colloquialisms and all of that. You want to try to keep it so that, that it feels authentic, knowing that it's a little bit of a cheat. In my case, I'm older and my parents were much older than me. And I'm not going to even tell you when my dad was born, because that's like, whoa, way back. I mean, way back. My grandfather even further back. And so, I had the privilege of meeting them and hearing how they, not my father died before I was born, but my grandfather, hearing how he spoke, etc., was, a valuable thing.
Hi, I'm Nancy with Film Critique.
Hey.
And one of the things that I find really fascinating about this, like you mentioned, I am really like into the assassination of Lincoln and JFK. I find them so fascinating and Martin Luther King Jr. just because of, like you said, the mysteries that surround that. But one of the things that I noticed with this series, like in a lot of the things that I've learned, I always kind of learned that John Wilkes Booth was sort of like this wannabe actor, like he was kind of a failed actor. That's the way that he was painted in a lot of the things that I learned. And so I was finding it very fascinating to see that he was kind of famous, like people knew him and were really, really helping him. A lot of that was downplayed in the history. So I wanted to know, like the process of bringing that to the screen and how that works and how you feel about that as well.
Well, it goes even deeper than that with him, because the family itself was incredibly famous. His father and brother were more famous than him. And what I found interesting, something that I didn't know ahead of time, was that because I knew that he was a famous actor, but I did not know he was famous for stunts. That it was kind of like, see, you guys are too young, but back in the 70s, there were the movies that were the Academy Award caliber films, and then there were the movies that Eastwood and Clinton and Charles Bronson made, which were action movies. And so there's kind of that comparison with him within his own family. His brother Edwin and his father Julius, they played the serious roles. He evidently used to do these sword fights and stuff on stage, But, what I tried to do was to try to get inside of that whole issue of the jealousy that went between them with the family. When he basically looks up in the bar at his brother and father, who are up on, they're everywhere he goes. They're in the theater, they're in the bars, etc. The photos of them, because they're that famous. And then he says, when he looks up at them and says, tomorrow I'm gonna be the most famous man in the whole world. That was one subtle nod to trying to show his his sense of inadequacy in his own family, that he was the one who was not famous as he was famous, very famous, but not like his older brother and his dad. So we tried to get some detail in that even too.
Nice, thank you. Yes, and that was like a great detail, like how when he gets the paper, he says, "Oh, I'm a symbol," rather than like celebrating that, want to assassinate his death. So,
well, Well, and also he didn't want to give up his mustache because he said that's his signature look, which is interesting. And one of the things that we did too, which was a nod to kind of the more modern audiences, you oftentimes see these guys and they're like on the screen, they're 50 foot tall, and you meet them and they're 5'7". And so this cat was like, you look much smaller in person. We did that a couple times, to kind of, to let people who have had that experience of meeting some of these folks relate to that.
Nice, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Carl, the one thing that I found fascinating was I don't know why it was such a revelation, but that there was this big conspiracy behind the assassination. I never had really thought about it, I guess, that deep. But what other kind of revelations did you discover as you began to do the research and put this all together?
I have to say, I did not do a whole lot of research. I was brought in and the scripts were pretty much done when I saw them. I mean, I did a few things because I was aware of certain details in history, but I'm also working on something else, on the rise and fall of the Black Panther Party. So I was like focused on what I was working on when I first got the script. But one of the things that really did, kind of surprise me was the involvement of Montreal, Canada in it, because, I used to hang out in Montreal. Montreal is such a cool city, racially and otherwise. And it's like, wow, Montreal was a hub of the Confederacy. That really surprised me. And the international reach of things, how involved were the Brits and the French and all of that, because we didn't even get into a lot of that. And that's the thing that like a lot of people right now talking Civil War and all of this, man, they act like they think that folks are gonna, from the outside, are just gonna watch us fight and ain't nothing gonna happen. And we start fighting, it's over, because other groups will come in and take advantage of that.
It's an interesting place we live in, right?
Yeah, brother. Yeah. Yeah.
How you doing, Carl? This is Al McGee again with YETicket.com. Well, you directed the first two episodes, and what I felt that the other directors did, they followed you on the emotional content of the president getting assassinated. And I felt very emotional about that, partly because of Lincoln, but partly because of the era and the time and how important it was for us. But I noticed that the emotional content kept following the other episodes. How did you set that up? And also, I know you probably talked to the showrunner. And how did they continue to set that up, the emotional content of this show?
Well, I think, that it's pretty much in the script. The thing that I wanted to make sure of was that the gravity of the assassination was felt, for the people who it really meant something to. And that was primarily not just Black people, but also poor whites as well. And we tried to show that when they took his casket, or really wasn't a casket, just a pine box that they got at the time before they were able to put him in a casket, and taking him out of, the house across the street. And when they took him away, we had the people, touching the coffin, et cetera, just to get a reverence to, what he meant to them, because he this was a life-changing thing. If the policies that that had come into effect under his administration, if they were stopped, a lot of folks are gonna go back into slavery. And they were aware of that. This was a major, thing for Black people, or the, folks at the time. Say Black people, period. Because even if you were free, the threat of being, kidnapped and forced into slavery, even if you were a free person, was always there too. So, I mean, it was just simply the way that we tried to, just in terms of I wanted to make sure that there was a sense of, like, with the crowd in the street, once he's killed, folks outside, they did some lines in the ADR that I wasn't that happy with, because it makes it sound as not as important as it could have been. But there were just to somehow, and even in the rain, we had the rain for when they took the coffin away, and the rain when Mary Lincoln goes with the body, which was really fortuitous for us. And that also added to the mood of the death of the president.
Yeah, I felt all that. Even the emotional content when Johnson said, "Take the land back from the African American, the slaves that was given to it," and then that emotional content when they took that back. But also, then one more thing about I always admire Lily Taylor. She played Mary Todd Lincoln. How was it working with her? Because to me, she's always been a great actress. She always had some great roles. And how was it working with her when she played Mrs. Lincoln?
Oh, it was great, and she's kind of quirky, which is interesting. And Mary Lincoln was quirky. And she also has the ability to to really go into her emotions pretty heavily. And Mary Lincoln was a very emotional person, actually a little crazy from what what it sounds like. Homeboy must have been tweaked a little bit too, man, because hey, he knew that before he married her. So hey,
Yeah, I know how that goes. Well,
Right.
thank you very much, Carl. And it's great talking to you. Like I said, I've always been a big fan of yours, even with your acting, and then you turned director. Thank you for coming here and talking to us. I appreciate it. I really do. And I appreciate your talents. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Hi, Carolyn again. So before we talked a bit about setting the tone for the show as the director for the first 2 episodes, something that I really wasn't expecting with this show is how it centers Edwin Stanton, who is the war secretary played by Tobias Menzies. And it occurred to me that I watched a lot of period films and dramas set in this time period, and also about Abraham Lincoln's assassination or leading up to it. And it occurred to me, I've never really seen a project that highlighted the role of a war secretary and how big of a role he played, not only in Abraham Lincoln's life personally, but also politically. And that how Edwin Stanton was really the driving force in making sure that his policies were kept after his death, and that he had to kind of stand in the gap from Andrew Johnson from basically, in a sense, pardon the pun, assassinating Lincoln's legacy after he had died. So talk about working with the showrunners and the writers for highlighting that character, because I think even though it's an ensemble cast, the show really does center around him. He's kind of like the linchpin of the entire series. So talk about working with Tobias and the showrunners to keeping Edwin as the almost as the centerpiece for the entire plot.
Well, Tobias is a fantastic actor, and it was great working with him. And he's someone who really does delve deep into understanding what the material is. I mean, I have to say, he was very, very helpful there and very committed to getting to the underbelly of what the story is, which is always important. I mean, you want to shoot the subtext, you want to play the subtext. The interesting thing about Edmund Stanton is that there was, for a period of time, there was no one running the country. Lincoln was assassinated. Johnson had not been sworn in yet. Everything was in flux. People were in hiding, et cetera, et cetera. They had made an attempt on the Secretary of State. And so he was in no position to come in and take over either. So it was really left to Stanton. And I think he took it upon himself individually, and that's pretty much what the story is about, is his own individual effort to pursue Booth, number one, because Johnson would have let him go. Two, to try to revive, or to, I guess you could say, protect Lincoln's policies, especially as it related to Reconstruction. But it actually was a period of time in our history when there was no leadership. It was everything was in flux. And I think what was surprising to them is that they found out that in Edwin Stanton's is kind of articulates that when he visits Lincoln the first time when Lincoln's been shot, and he says they tried to topple us. that's one of the things I don't think that most people understand, is that when John Wilkes Booth, and you guys have brought it up, that he wasn't alone, that it was a concerted effort, that there were other people involved, and the whole intent was to invalidate the results of the war. The North won the war, the South capitulated, but they didn't want to accept that. I think we've seen something similar, but
Yes, you did. Thank you so much.
Hi, Dana again. I was fascinated with the fact that, we again follow these different characters and some of the information we already know and don't know. But what was interesting, a question I wanted to ask for you, was there a particular character that you love that they expanded on? Not that they give more information, but just the fact that they highlighted something that hasn't truly been taught, we haven't focused on.
Well, the one character besides the Edmund Stanton character, because of course he's that kind of character as well, I think would have to be the character of Mary Sims. She was someone who was pivotal in the trial, and in order for her to not just appear out of thin air, you had to kind of get into her story to understand who she was and what she saw, what she witnessed when she was working for Dr. Mudd. So she probably would be the one I would say that is, the surprise character that no one knew about, who had a much more important role in things than history has revealed.
Hi, Nancy Green again. And okay, so one of the things that I've always found fascinating about the history, and it's kind of like a fringe history, is how Lincoln sort of had these, I guess, maybe premonitions or feelings about what would happen to him, and he sort of ignored it. And in this, you have the war secretary who's really like, send someone to watch Lincoln. He's very much like, you have to watch yourself. These are the things that they're planning. And so when he goes and he goes to the house to see the other the secretary of, or was it the Secretary of State that was the assassination on him, or the assassination? And he immediately is like, let's go find Lincoln. Let's see what's happening. Can you talk a bit about that and sort of this driving force of instinct that sort of leads the character as he's going through in this Manhunt?
I missed some of that because you kind of went out a little bit, because I know you had talked about kind of the supernatural kind of thing with Lincoln having premonitions about his death. Some of the others I missed, some of the other stuff.
Okay, with the war secretary, he's very much going through kind of on the same sort of thing. A lot of it is instinct, sort of the way that he understood that there was a threat to Lincoln beforehand, and he wanted to be very cautious about that. And also, as he's finding these things about Booth and whatnot, he seems to be kind of at the forefront of listening to his instincts, whereas Lincoln, unfortunately, did not. So I wanted to know if you could talk about using that sort of thing as the driving force of the character as he goes forward in the Manhunt.
Well, that again is something that's in the script. But what I will say about that is that, if you look back in time, people were a lot more attuned to their instincts than I think we are now. I think that, like, especially when you didn't have, television and the whole electronic connections to things, that you kind of were forced to deal more intimately with your surroundings, your physical surroundings, what it was that you saw, that you felt, etc. And I believe that that is something that probably the further we go back in time, I would imagine the stronger those instincts are. There are people in, like, when they had the tsunami. Remember back about what, 15 years ago was it? Or is it, my time might be off on that, but there are people in like Southeast Asia, as I understand, don't remember which country, tribal people who knew it was coming and who went to higher ground. They felt it. They knew what was up. Now, we hadn't had one in I don't know how many years. So it obviously was not something that they had experienced necessarily in their lifetimes, in so much as in their, in the oral history or whatever means of communication they were using to pass that knowledge down, you know. And so I think that like there was a time, when and also, you know, I would think, now when a president goes out or when an important person, someone who has money or whatever, they're bodyguards, they anticipate violence. People weren't doing that for the most part. I mean, even like as recent as the JFK assassination, he was riding through town with the top down, through crowds of people. That would not happen now. It's a different world. The way that they fought, and that formation as opposed to, more guerrilla style, had some kind of a history of, I guess, somehow associated with honor of some kind, that precluded you actually thinking that someone would sneak up behind you and do whatever they do. I mean, I don't know. I mean, but it's hard for us to relate to because of the time we live in. But evidently at that time, the notion of assassination was something that a lot of people just, weren't entertaining. They just didn't think it was going to happen.
Nice, nice. Thank you. And this is a really fascinating series.
Hey, good afternoon. Anthony White with the Movie Blog.
Hey now, brother. What's up?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on your creative contributions that you've made to ensure an accurate portrayal of the complexities of race relations in the post-Civil War era? And while doing that, what role did you envision that the miniseries would play in highlighting the often overlooked contribution of these Black individuals in history?
I didn't get involved a whole lot in that actual structural stuff. That was written. I don't want to take that from the writer. That was pretty much the writer's responsibility and writer's contribution. What I did try to do was, and in some instances, I lost those fights. I mean, because I actually thought that Mary was a little bit too well dressed. When you start to look back at the way Black people were treated at that time, I thought, I wanted things dirtier because it was, not paved streets at the time and all of that. So there were things that, that I wanted to do that did not get done. Some of it had to do with time, some of it had to do with resistance. But, what is hard to do is now when you have a character like a Mary Sims, who obviously had a lot of courage and who obviously was someone who, was pivotal in the trial at the end, you wrestle with how, what's the word? How forthcoming their resistance to the norms of the time were. How open were they about how they expressed their dislike of what it was they were having to do. And clearly we experimented with that a little bit when she was with Mud, when she was and with the way that she responded to Booth when Booth was being taken care of. You don't have a whole lot of room because of the way things were at the time. And the way things, I mean, you guys, again, as I said, pretty young, but like, man, you should have just seen what it was like in the 50s and 60s in a lot of places, man. And that was 100 years removed from that time. And it was still a situation where, Black people who spoke up were looked upon as being a little bit, what's the word? What is that word when they want to say that you think you're more than what you are? my vocabulary is dying as I get older. But you know,
You mean uppity or something like that?
uppity, yeah, where they feel like you're being uppity, just for basically, just for basically expecting to be treated like a human being, nothing special, but just expecting to be, to not be, treated maligned or whatever, that you're uppity because of that. And so, trying to find out what that balance is and is hard. We know that there were Black people who basically resisted the system and openly did, but oftentimes the punishment was so severe that, they didn't get away with it, although there were people who did, so it was, it was a tightrope walking with that. I did not have a lot of Mary Sims in my 2 episodes. She wasn't featured in the first 2 because we were basically setting up the story of the assassination and what was happening. And so that was the business of the first 2 episodes. And then it started to get more into the characters and what the individual commitments of these various people were, once we had set the overall table.
Anthony, you want to ask a follow-up?
Sure, yeah. Now, you touched on a little bit about how, today's youth is just may not have the same level of exposure to these stories that we are seeing in this story. What are you hoping that audiences take away, specifically younger audiences take away from this story, especially in today's climate?
Well, one, I hope that they realize the fragility of the system this experiment that we live in, that we've taken for granted, this quote unquote democracy, and understand the importance of being involved in it to vote. Number one, I mean, the smallest contribution that you can make, which is to vote. But also just to understand that, we are the government. We are what collectively, what people do, that is the government. And if you decide not to participate in that, it does not mean that power goes, dormant. Somebody's going to seize that power. Power is neutral. You don't own power, you harness it. And so there will be people who will, hopefully understand that it's important that they stay involved, and particularly in this election that's coming up right now. There were certain things that were said in this script that, that basically wanted to point to what's, going on. When she talked about Booth and all of them being extremists, I mean, they were worse than that, man. They were motherfuckers who had gone out and actually killed folks. So, excuse my language, sorry.
No. You're more than appropriate given the circumstances and the times. And and my question was, thank you, Anthony, for asking. I mean, it's sort of like a cautionary tale because of what this country just recently experienced and what could potentially happen again. So the timing for all of this is great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Are there any other takeaways that you hope people take from viewing this the show?
That's for the most, I would have to think about some things. I mean, there are some things I don't want to talk about because there are certain political statements that were made that, I don't know, I mean, there's a more complexity to these two characters than you ever can get an opportunity to get into, with Lincoln, et cetera. Lincoln was not, what I did like is that they also saw that, the position that he was in, and hopefully they would understand that any president would be kind of in a similar position in some ways. He wasn't all in on, African-American rights. Not necessarily, maybe not necessarily because of what he personally believed. I mean, that's debatable of what he personally believed, but the practicality of that and the, going from what this country had been used to doing for a few hundred years, suddenly to eliminate that, was something that was going to, you know, and it's not a question of like saying, well, hey man, these people and their property deserve none of that. It's just the change, you know, people's mindset. And we saw that people were not willing to change that much because of the brutality that followed Reconstruction, you know, that is not dealt with in this. And, you know, because of how deep, and it wasn't just in the South, it was in the North as well. You know, people who had issues with people suddenly being free. So that's something that, you know, I think that, you know, hopefully people will understand is just the gravity of that change in the culture, you know.
Carl, thank you so much for the time. We always love talking with you, and we certainly are looking forward to whatever you have coming next.
Oh, hey, cool.
You did you did a terrific job setting things up for this series, which is just, I mean, from beginning to end, is just terrific. So on behalf of the world's largest group of Black film and TV critics, thank you again, and thank you for watching this edition of AAFCA Roundtables. Have a
Hey,
great
thank
day.
you. All right, brother.
Absolutely.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.